work. Man of War. I really like Man of War. You know, Slayer. I was big fans of Slayer. Huge fans of them. Halloween. You asked me earlier about bands that really have a statement that's more like pertaining to the conspiracy. Then I would definitely say Kai Hansen's Gamma Ray. And earlier he was in the band Halloween. And if you listen to their albums, they got some very powerful things to say. They did a song called Phantoms of Death, Giants. My God, there's some incredible stuff there by Gamma Ray. No World Order is one of their albums, which totally people should listen to, you know. Um, I mean,
Excellent.
the list goes on. There's so many great bands, both in the very heavier metal bands, you know, that have come out. Some of those are very good. And then there's lots and lots and lots of metal I really don't like, that I think is totally false and just
I
hideous,
I think
you know.
that goes for every genre of music, definitely. Cherie, there was a email question that I wanted to get on the record. Can you pick that one up?
Okay. Yeah, he's asking. I'm from India, and I've. Oh, it's about the ethnic war in Sri Lanka. I'm from India, and I've read some reports that says an ethnic cleansing of sorts, like what's happening in Iraq of suspected Anunnakis, is taking place. Let me know if you have the time. Maybe I can send you more details. This person, I don't think they know English very well. But do you know anything about that?
Well, yeah, these places were very rich in minerals, and therefore the British East India Company, who actually they are also behind the Thuggee. They're also behind a lot of criminal institutions like the Tong in China, and also the Triads. All of these groups, including the Thuggee and many other criminal organizations, and who are now, you'd find these political groups. These were all funded and created by the British royals, because they wanted to leave England. Excuse me, they wanted to leave India in a state of total chaos when they pulled out. Therefore, they had to create a division between the Hindus and the Muslims, which, of course, there was the fighting over Pakistan, Bengal, and India. Right, there's millions of deaths. That was deliberately caused. Mahatma Gandhi tried to do his best to stop it, but he couldn't. And down in Sri Lanka, which used to be called Ceylon, by the way, its original name was Ceylon, they did the same thing again to suppress all of the indigenous people down there who had already been suppressed for hundreds of years. The suppression of Ceylon goes back hundreds and hundreds of years, where the original Dravidian peoples, the original indigenous peoples, had always been subjugated in various ways. And so they want the minerals. It's also, by the way, a strategic place. There's certain observations of the heavens that can only be made from Ceylon. There's certain military reasons why they want to there. It was also a place where, in the time of the Elizabethan age, the pirates used to bury their gold, you see, and bring their slaves, and also including Fiji and the Seychelles Islands. These are very important to the maritime law and to maritime to shipping and all of the things that the British government tried to control, you see. So Ceylon has been the center of so much trouble, just as being Thailand and Malaysia and all of these Eastern Bloc countries. Not Eastern Bloc, but you know what I'm saying, the Far Eastern countries. And the history of these places is very interesting. I really don't know that much about it. I'm more up to speed on what happened in northern India, you know, between the Hindus and the Muslims and so on. But all of these divisions, all of these religious divisions, and all of these ethnic divisions, these are all manufactured by Britain. It goes for Europe, it goes for the Middle East, how they purposely, deliberately put ethnic peoples beside each other who have long hated each other, have nothing in common culturally with others. The British, after the Second World War, and after the First World War, I mean, through the Balfour Declaration and various other policies, purposely made sure that very, very dissimilar peoples would be forced to live in colonies side by side, because they knew that that would lead to a Second World War. They knew that that would lead to various other conflicts in the world. Never leave the world in a state of conflict. Goes back to what we were saying psychologically earlier on about the people who are in a state of complete spiritual, moral, and intellectual depravity want to make the world into the state of chaos, and they've been able to do this through the banks, the world banks. What do you think all this immigration is today, where the whole Western world is flooded with immigrants? Is because the World Bank has so impoverished all of these foreign countries. Instead of helping them to live in their own countries and giving them aid, they have completely or officially impoverished Mexico and impoverished the East and impoverished Africa. And then they say, we'll open the doors of the affluent West, where people have worked to the bone to create that affluence, and now you're going to share it with all these people who don't bloody deserve it. and no matter how many people warned about this, that you can't create two impoverishments. Neither culture is going to be benefited from this hideous action. You don't do it in your own home, or if you did, you would soon learn the lesson. And you certainly can't do it in society. It has nothing to do with racism or anything else what I'm talking about. It's a simple immigration quota fact that for hundreds of years was obeyed and things were good. What on earth has got into people's minds? But this is this colonialization, and it has many, many permutations. And the East has been a threat, so they had to dumb down the Eastern people are backward intellectually. That's why they've been kept that way. In the Eastern Bloc, in the communist countries, right? What happened there? Well, massacre, genocide, and then artificially suppressing them with a fake ideology. And also making sure that they were materially in a great state of want. Because the powers that be are a small group. They can't, in fact, control the whole world normally. You can only work on one part of it. So while you're busy working on the target that you really want, these generals, these experts, they made sure that they split the world into the trilateral idea. And that in the Eastern Bloc, this is why the Russians, the Soviet troops, were allowed into Berlin, even though the American troops were technically there before. And they were told to hold back. Eisenhower told Patton to not go into Berlin and to wait for the Red Army to go in. And Patton screamed blue murder, so he was murdered. He was actually killed. This is known fact. Because he was going to create hell when he got back to America, talking about this incident.
He was going to
Why
expose
were the Soviet troops let to go in? It's because it was to divide Berlin, to divide Germany, which is exactly what happened all over Europe, not only in Germany. The communists were allowed to go in because the same people who fund communism, right, are the same people doing the experiments in the West. But they had to artificially put it on ice. They had other reasons for it as well, of course, but you divide and you conquer. You keep the Europe under ice. You keep it on the back burner, right? And in the third world, you simply massacre and impoverish them materially and keep them in an intellectually completely dumbed down state. And you do that through religion. You do that through the brand of religion. We said earlier, I have no time for these Eastern religions on the most part, except Taoism and a little bit of Jainism. I've got some, much more lenient with those. But on the whole, I understand what religion has done in India and these other places. And you do this within countries, and you do it broadly across the globe. And then when you turn, when you're finished with the main project, you have time now to turn to those other potatoes and say, well, now we're going to handle you, which is why NATO went in to handle the Serbs. And the immense atrocities have been done to the Serbian people. You see, that now they could be handled. Now Iraq and Kuwait and all of these places could be handled. Because you put in dictators, you put in tyrants, you put in people who will either freeze everything and keep things in a state of total arrested development materially and socially and religiously. And then you create the antithesis to that. We see it going on today with the Islamic conflict with the Christian world. That's for a reason. And how these primitive people who treat women so badly and believe in all this nonsense in religion, you see, they're now being purposely given hegemony. The doors are purposely being opened so that this conflict can be created.
Well,
That's a lot to digest.
And then was it Rush Limbaugh? Yeah, it was Rush Limbaugh the other day. Comes out and says all the people who lost families, lost their family on 9/11 should be outraged that Obama's not going after Muslim radicals or Muslim extremists, and he's not mentioning them as Muslim radicals or Muslim extremists. So, you've got all these people that are paid to stir up the pot of division, just to try to start wars, just to try to keep everybody separated.
Oh yeah, the Glenn Becks, the Jon Stewarts, the Bill Mayers, this slug you just mentioned. They are there as the mouthpieces of dissent. They pretend to take an opposite view. They have maybe a sheen of humor, or like Bill O'Reilly, a sheen of antagonism. You see, and this is all done to stir up all of these partisan divisions, which if left for a few minutes, people wouldn't even be really buying into. They're so illogical that you drop them. So they have to keep up churning the pot, as you say, to keep this thing going. Yeah, okay, if they're going to go after some sort of Islamic extremists, why don't they also go after the Carlyle Group and various other organizations who created these Talibans and these other maniacs over there?
Right.
these freaks, these lunatics and extremists have been incubated